Hi, I'm Tim Zacharias with Cougar USA and your host of Building Value. My guest today is Carlos Flores, Division Manager of the Plumbing Inspection Department for the City of Houston. Welcome to the show, sir.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Really excited about this episode. We're going to be talking about Carlos's past and his passion for the plumbing industry and how his department ensures that plumbing systems are safe and up to code. On Building Value, we go behind the scenes of building operations to showcase the people and products that make buildings work and the value they bring to the community. I know you went to high school with here in the Houston area with our own Stephen Hale, but can you tell me a little bit about kind of where you grew up and what part of town, all that?
Okay. Well, my parents moved to Houston when I was 3. Since then, we've been pretty much in the Heights area. That's
Nice.
where I grew up. So I went to Hamilton Junior High at the time. It's not middle school. Went to Waltrip Senior High. Graduated in 81. Been pretty much here in Houston for most of my life.
Nice. Same here. So what'd you end up doing after high school?
High school, I worked as a plumber with Roto-Rooter. Actually, my dad was
Nice.
employed there, had been there for as long as I can remember. And that's kind of where I got, I guess, my first taste of it, if you will.
Right.
And I think in the early 80s, he went on to be a master plumber and start his own business. And so about that time, I went to school in San Antonio for a couple of years. And moved back here about 86, 87.
Okay.
I moved back to Houston and have been here pretty much ever since.
Yeah. And so what were you doing when you moved back?
When I moved back, I was doing all kinds of odd jobs. I didn't want to be a plumber at all, at all. My original goal in life was to be a police officer.
Okay.
But being colorblind, that didn't pan out for me.
Oh, wow.
So, kind of just scratched my way around here, different places, and everything kept coming back to plumbing.
Yep.
So I ended up with a job at John Moore. They hired me, even though I didn't have a license. They hired me because they knew I had some expertise in the field. So they used me in the office to answer questions, technical questions, and so started there. And I had recently been remarried and I had a child on the way, so I went to Keith Moore, who was the son of John Moore, and explained to him, hey, I got a kid coming. I need some more money.
Yep.
He said, well, you get your license. I'll put you on a truck. And lo and behold, he kept his word, and I got my license and have had it ever since.
Nice. And then, so, did some work out in the field, have been the licensed plumber. How did that kind of transition into the plumbing inspection side?
Well, again, having kids, by this time I had one other, so 2, and then my stepson. So my wife was big in having insurance and being self-employed because at that time I left John Moore and started working with my dad.
Okay.
And so she was like, well, we need insurance. We got the kids and things happen and da-da-da-da-da. So one thing led to another. She was working a temporary job with the city, and which turned into a permanent for her. And then she found out there was a position open in neighborhood protection. And that group enforces the city's nuisance ordinances.
Okay.
And so it was a foot in the door. And so I became a customer service or community inspector, I'm sorry.
Okay.
And did that for 2.5 years or so. And then I said, no, I'm going back to plumbing. I know where everything's coming from there.
Right.
So she said, well, no, there's a position for an inspector open. And I thought at the time, I said, they won't ever hire me. I don't, for various reasons, I just thought they wouldn't hire me. And interviewed with, at the time, the chief inspector was Bob West. And he had known me through minor contact with my dad in the course of working with him. And so I had the interview with him, and shortly after I received a call from him, said, we're going to select you, but it's going to be a little while. So I said, great. So 90, August of 96.
Wow.
I became a plumbing inspector and have been one since. It's been great. I mean, it's been a constant paycheck, not having to worry about not working, not getting paid. I got rained out. I can't work, so I'm not
Sure.
making money. So the stability, the set work schedule, it afforded me a great opportunity to be home with my kids as they were coming up in
Absolutely.
the afternoons. The money's not always the greatest, but it's a trade-off, money or time with your kids and the family, because they're only small once.
Right.
And so I became an inspector in 96, and I did inspections for a few years. Then they slated me to be an investigator. So I did that for 2 or 3 years, actually doing enforcement of city ordinances and state laws, writing tickets, going to court.
Okay.
Had a few instances where we had to call the cops to kind of give me some backup out there.
Oh, man.
Yeah, some interesting times.
Yeah.
But yeah, unpermitted work, unlicensed personnel, things of that nature. So I would call a master plumber and say, hey, this is what's going on in your job. I need you to come see me. And so they'd come walking through the office, and we jokingly called it the walk of shame. But they would come in, sign the ticket, on their way. Those type of tickets were clear cut. Others I had to do a little more investigative work, finding out who lived there, who was the owner of the property, and yeah, it was interesting. To do that kind of work, and then
Sure.
Obviously generated income for the city, and went to court, and that's an interesting thing to do. Let's go to court and have to testify.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why you're seeing all the licenses on the trucks, right? So
Yes.
you know right away whether or not they're the guys that are there licensed, legit, doing their work, right?
For the most part, yeah, that's one of the requirements for the trucks to have the master license on their displayed on their truck, according to state law. Also through the course of those investigations, you'd arrive on a job site and card what we call carding the workers. So we'd ask for them to present their licenses.
Right.
So obviously that's a state requirement as well. So when they couldn't produce it, I took it upon myself to feel like, hey, go get your license. You'll be more marketable. You'll make more money for yourself. Yep. So it wasn't always just about the enforcement. It was trying to educate and encourage these guys to go do that. And to this day, I have a few plumbers out there that will say, because of me and because of what the actions I took with them in that regard, they've made a better life for them and their families.
That's awesome. And I think that type of cooperative relationship between in this case, the plumbers, and you as the enforcement, ends up with a better result for everybody.
Right. I mean, because at the end of the day, we're all plumbers.
Right.
We're all in the same industry, so we should be helping each other. Inspector with plumbers, plumbers with inspectors, contractors, engineers, anybody that's involved in the plumbing industry. We've got one goal, and that's to make sure that we're installing a system that's going to be safe for the citizens of Houston and for the state.
Yep. No, and it's a big responsibility.
It is.
You see, I love the old school posters, it says, protecting the health of the nation with the plumbers. And I think that's one of the things that people don't necessarily realize is what all is going into plumbing and how much of a public health and safety issue it can be.
Yeah, that's unfortunately, I don't know where that lies, but there's not enough public information to let people know the reasoning behind what we do. Yeah, obviously, it's to generate income for the city, tax revenue or whatever revenue at all.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, for us, and I speak generally for our group and our inspectors, it's not about the money. It's not about being out there and say, well, I'm the inspector and you got to do what I say. No, it's about providing a safe system to ensure the public has a system that's not going to be harmful, that's going to be beneficial to them. And, plumbers aren't cheap. So to ensure that we hold them to a minimum standard, that's all the code is a minimum standard. So we feel like what we ask them to do, what's required of them to do per code, per state law, is at the end of the day just to make sure that, one, we're proud of our craft and our trade, and that we maintain our credibility. Because, for the most part, and I feel pretty good about having a license or having a license, being a plumber, having that experience. It's not a lucrative trade. It's not a real classy, styly trade. I mean, you're dealing with, let's face it,
Yep.
not good stuff.
Right.
And then what interests me so much about it is that there's so many different facets of plumbing. Yeah. You have the new construction. You have the models, the remodels, and the repairs, and then you have the service work.
Yep.
And so there's so many facets, and that plumbing is so intricate, and there's a science to it that people don't realize.
Yep.
So that if it's not installed correctly, oversized, undersized, it all has ramifications to the system.
Yep.
So it's been a good trade. It's been I'd say great trade for me.
Yep.
It's afforded me the opportunity to provide for my family, and like I say, just overall, it's been good for me.
Yep. And you talk about the pride, and I see that a lot. We worked with the local 68. Saw you there with the ASPE as well, and then PACC, and it seems to be a common theme across the board that plumbers are very proud of their trade and that license and what it means, and ultimately the effect of all the work that gets done. So, and obviously we're here supporting them as well with what we're doing, and so definitely feel that same pride.
Yeah, well, there's so much. I mean, you have the formal training that you get from your local plumbing union, which is great. I mean, they have an outstanding program for those that want to join and to learn a trade and learn the science and get the proper education behind it. And then you have somebody like myself that learned on the other side. You learn by doing and
on the job.
And along the way there were people that poured their lives into me and their knowledge, and so I like to try to pay that back into the younger plumbers and even the older ones. They don't all know everything.
Sure.
So just in a way to pay back and teach, because with state requirements, the amount of hours that we have to have just to be able to test.
Right.
So yeah, we're very proud of that.
Yeah, and you should be. Yeah, It's awesome. So, can you talk a little bit about your role now and the group that you're heading up?
Okay, so my current role is division manager for plumbing inspections for the city of Houston. I'm not one to take on titles and to be all pompous about it or whatever, but I'm pretty proud of that accomplishment.
Absolutely.
Being the division manager for the fourth largest city in the country, and being a little over 40 people in our staff, including inspectors and our frontline service techs that answer the phones and help people with the day-to-day customer service. So my current role doing what I do as a division manager is just basically to oversee the day-to-day operations and administrative duties for our section, which involves just making sure that I'm mentoring our people, that they're getting the proper training they need. I'm having to help coordinate with budgeting and ensuring that we have what we need to help our staff perform their work, giving them the tools they need. Also, I have to help with code interpretation. We're currently eagerly anticipating the adoption of the 2015 Uniform Plumbing Code. There was a lot of painstaking work that went into reviewing the code and getting it to where we are happy with it. I mean, we get the model code and we try to stick to the model code, but given our logistical location, there's certain things that for our region we need to adapt to. So we're in the process of doing that. We're hoping that will be adopted either late August, early September. Okay. And then my understanding is that we will pivot and start the review process for the 2021.
Okay.
So that will get us a little closer to being caught up to the current code.
Yeah, it's always changing.
Yes.
Right? And then I imagine some of the, like you mentioned, the amendments to the UPC will stay that are kind of unique to City of Houston, the brake tank requirements and some other things like that.
Yeah, and a lot of that sometimes is left up to interpretation of whoever's in charge at the time. Mm-hmm. And then we also have a code development staff that will have their input, and then we do everything within the confines or the requirements of the state code and requirements.
Gotcha. And it's fitting today. We're in the code library here at
Yes.
the Houston Permitting Center building, which is just a really cool building. I do like coming here and checking everything out. So it's cool to be here in this code library, hearing you talk about it. So you mentioned you have 40 inspectors, right?
We have six. Well, we have 6 supervisors, field supervisors in the office. Currently, we're short one because one was promoted to my assistant. So we're waiting for that hire to be completed. But we usually have six seniors, and then we have 4 frontline staff. We have a section chief. We have 2 permit specialists and 1 permit tech.
Okay.
The phones, helping customers call when they call in with questions about online, the iPermits program to be able to purchase permits online. They distribute the calls as needed to the seniors, depending on the needs of the call. And then we're not fully staffed, but we're almost there. We've got probably 37, 38 inspectors.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And I know, over the last almost 18 months now, with everything that's been going on with COVID, there's been some ups and downs in the construction and activity in existing buildings, but we've seen at least a pretty good uptick in activity this year. So are you seeing a similar uptick in the activity in terms of the number of inspections that y'all are doing? I mean, how many inspections can these guys do in a day? I mean, it's such a massive city. I mean, how much activity do y'all have going on?
Yeah, our crew is pretty great. They do a large amount of work in a short amount of time.
Sure.
COVID impacted a lot of that last year. We had dropped from well over 600 inspections a day.
Wow.
Fridays it was not unheard of to have on 700 inspections or better on Fridays.
That's crazy.
So when COVID came around, it knocked everything in the dirt pretty much, and we went down to 300 to 400 a day.
Wow.
So surprisingly,
that's still a lot.
Yeah, surprisingly, the industry was still plugging along and doing some work out there, based on the protocols that were in place. Our building had shut down. Most of our staff was working from home.
Yep.
We had maybe 40% of them still here. Myself and my interim assistant at the time, we reported to work every day.
Yep.
And our section chief, she reported most of the time. After a while, it gets tiresome. You're the only one still coming in, and everybody's working from home. So you can't fault people for wanting to do that telecommute. So we did, it did pose some problems and some issues like anything else. But with the staff we had, they pressed forward. Till we kind of where we're at today, where we feel like we're kind of on the outside of that dark cloud we were under there for a while. So. Yeah, there's an uptick. Currently, we are averaging a little better than 500 inspections a day.
Wow.
So it's come up some. Given the weather pattern that we've had recently with a lot of the rain, it has knocked it down back into the high 400s. But when we get a string of sunny days, it gets back up there.
Yeah, I think everybody's ready for this weather to clear out, man.
It's been interesting.
It's been rough.
It has, but so we've been plugging along. The plans in the system are on the uptick. There's a lot of work still planned in the system. So once those break loose, I would imagine our numbers are going to keep increasing.
It's good to hear.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I mean, definitely Houston's growing despite everything that's going on. I mean, there's still a lot of people moving here, a lot of new construction. So it's good to hear that.
It's amazing
that you're seeing the plans and the uptick in inspections. So what is it that these guys or these people are going out and looking at? What are the kind of the scope of an inspection, whether it's commercial or residential? What are the things that they're looking for when they're going and performing these inspections?
Well, obviously the biggest thing is just to make sure that the work is meeting the minimum code requirements for whatever the scope of work is.
Okay.
So we have rejections that are from the simplest things to the most complex things. But some of the simple things, nobody's answering the door. Nobody's home. The plans are not on the site. That's an important part, especially for commercial work. That's our inspector's roadmap for the work that's being done, to know exactly what's going in where. And so we have an engineer that's designed this building, and so we want to make sure that it's designed to their specs. So when we look at the plans, we're looking at the materials that are spec'd out. We're looking at to ensure that they don't have some PVC piping in a return air plenum, which is a life safety issue.
Right.
If it's a ducted plenum and they've got the proper materials, then good, PVC's fine. But if it's a return air system, we do have sometimes that somebody tries to value engineer a job after we've already received the plan. So that presents a problem. Just recently, one of the biggest things that we run into that people sometimes forget about is bee stings on the jobs, fleas, ant bites. But just last week we had an inspector get bit by a dog.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, basic routine inspection, residential inspection. He knocked on the door, backed away from the door, and as soon as the door opened, the lady opened the door, the dog comes out and starts gnawing on him. Used him for a chew toy.
Oh, gosh.
So fortunately for the inspector, though, this house is on blocks. It's a pier and beam house, so the porch is up higher. And so fortunately for the inspector, he did not fall backwards after being attacked. Had he fallen back, then it would have been more severe injuries as far as, or the potential for him, because he would have fallen down about 4 feet, 3 or 4 feet down, and then the dog would have had more access to him.
Yeah.
So we, then our seniors have to go out, the supervisors have to go out and file a report and workers' comp and do all that. I mean, anytime we have to file a report like that, it's a lot of paperwork.
Yeah.
Those are some unique situations we get into. The fleas and the mosquito bites and all that. Sometimes we go into not dangerous buildings, but we go into vacant buildings that are being demoed. So we have to go on those lots. Well, many times those lots are not cut down. They have a lot of overgrowth, so you have to be real careful where they're walking. And so you also run into, we have protocols and things in place to where you make a sewer connection. Well, another group decides where that point of connection is. So our guys are supposed to verify where that sewer connection is supposed to be made and ensure it's made in the proper place in the proper manner. There's a lot of things we look at as far as the inspections go. We obviously they have to test the system before they can put it in play. So we require a water test on PVC, DWV, which is the drainage waste and vent. They have to test that with water. The PVC manufacturers do not recommend air for the simple reason that you create a bomb.
Yep.
Somebody walks away while it's charging, and somebody can get hurt severely.
Yep. Definitely don't want to do compressed air in the plastic pipe.
And so, same thing with the gas piping. We do a rough air test on that. So, there's just a lot of different intricacies involved in the.
And a lot of things that you're mentioning are just definitely kind of safety important issues, but not things that you would think of right away as being part of the job or part of the potential issue. So, definitely interesting. So, if we talk about the commercial side for a second, from a contractor's point of view, or the whether it's the developer, the owner, what are some things that maybe come up on a routine basis, or things that they maybe should be looking out for that can kind of help make this inspection process go smoother?
Well, the biggest thing is in commercial projects. A lot of times the designers, the architects, anybody that's involved with the project, they want to get an early start. It's always time. It's a big factor for them. The quicker we can get this in, the quicker we can turn it out, because somebody wants to occupy it.
Sure.
So what we run into in the larger projects is at the beginning, the plans may be submitted for foundation only. In fact, before we started this interview, I was dealing with that issue. So foundation only.
Yep.
And that plan is reviewed strictly for either foundation only or site work and foundation only. So that's just the site work, the underground, the storm, the sewer, the water, and everything in the footprint of the building. And so that's one step. And that project has to be finalized out technically before they really can proceed to the next one. But there's nothing to stop them from buying the permits for the others, or as soon as those plans come out. So then you'll have the foundation, and then you'll get a build out. Yep. And it could be a 9-story building. Well, they could do a shell core only, which is just the core plumbing
Right.
Your drain and vent system, and the roof drains, and the public restrooms.
Yep.
Then they'll buy another permit for the build-outs, the tenant
sure.
build-out. So then you start getting on one project, you get all this large variety of permits, and somehow, some way, it always turns out there's some information that didn't get conveyed to the MEPs, the mechanical, electrical, plumbing contractors.
Right.
So what we end up getting is, like I said right before I came in here, the guy says, well, I've got a foundation permit because I took over this job and nobody bought a permit for it. But we've got the inspections. Well, we try the best we can to keep work moving, but
Right.
sooner or later there's little details that get missed because the inspectors aren't privy to a large amount of information that they need because they're limited to what they can do on their smartphones.
Yep.
So here we are, this step got missed. Well, why do I have to buy a permit? Well, because it was part of it. So, yeah, the biggest thing commercially as it relates to the permits and projects is just making sure, if the contractors could make sure that they're conveying all the project numbers to their respective trades, that would stop a lot of the delays that they run into when they get close to being finished and they're trying to get a CO. And why can't I occupy this floor?
It's lacking a permit.
A lack of a permit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, those are the more complex reasons that may slow down a commercial job. The other thing is sometimes they'll have a thought of, oh, we can do this differently and we'll make this better. Well, they alternate or they alter from the plans that were originally approved.
Right.
And so that creates a delay because we're going to go by the approved set. And if it's not on there, then that's a rejection pending plan review.
Yep.
So they have to resubmit and go back through that process. Currently, I think now their plans are running about 20, 21 days in the system.
Wow.
Review the single trade reviews like that may go a little quicker, but it's still a delay, and delay is money.
Oh, absolutely. And I've got to wonder if that's taken into consideration when you get into the quote unquote value engineering options where they go and they make the changes like this. Okay, well, what does that 21-day delay do to the overall project, and is it worth the changes? So that's just personal nitpick of mine. I'm not a big fan of the value engineering.
Yeah,
a lot of times doesn't seem to bring, in my opinion, either value or
it doesn't bring any value. So, in fact, it just adds more cost to the job.
Yeah. So definitely understand that frustration, and communication seems to be key in general in these large projects. I mean, there's so many people involved, so many moving parts that you almost have to over communicate to get the point across.
Yeah,
so.
And we really love it when we get a large project that's being thought of, and they come in and they meet with us ahead of time.
Okay.
To get a jump on that, and those projects usually have a tendency more times than not to go very, very smoothly because they've grasped the understanding of the permits, the processes, and what it takes to limit the delays. And then you have the other projects that start and they just for some reason don't operate that way.
Yep. That makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. So we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about the residential side, because y'all are handling both, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And when I'm saying residential, I mean, I guess the definition is 4 units or less, right? Or a single family home, kind of, that kind of a building, home basically. What are things that, the contractors working in those environments or even the homeowners should be kind of keeping an eye out or looking for in that inspection process? Yeah,
we are currently under the 2012 International Residential Code, which is for 1 to 2 family dwellings.
Okay.
Anything larger than that could still be classified as residential, but they get inspected under the commercial code.
Gotcha.
So as far as for the residents, for minor remodels or the installation of a water heater, something so simple like that, they need to make sure that they're hiring reputable companies and contractors, because a lot of times, a handyman can do the work, may not have all the experience and knowledge that the licensed plumber has, and so he may install the water heater, if you will, and then not install the drain connection for the temperature and pressure relief properly. Mm-hmm. And why is that important? Well, and there again, it doesn't get conveyed to the public as much as it should, but that's your safety relief valve to release any excess pressure or temperature and if it doesn't have a way to release that, it's going to blow.
Yep.
And it's just going to blow straight up like a rocket.
Yep.
So things like that's one of the biggest things we run into, that they don't install those properly. So what happens if they don't, and the valve still works? Well, it's going to discharge water or steam, which could create scalding and potential, life-threatening issues for somebody that gets burnt like that. But the biggest thing is that homeowners will try to save money. They'll hire somebody they know, a friend of a friend, somebody from church, somebody, whatever. And that's all great and well and good. But a lot of times they're doing themselves, again, with similar to the value engineering, they're doing themselves a great injustice, because they're not hiring somebody that knows exactly what's supposed to be done and knows that a permit's required and gets the inspection. So then that creates headaches for the homeowner if something happens and we find out that, hey, this install was done.
Yep.
One of the biggest issues we're having right now is homes that are being bought, that were bought and remodeled prior to them taking possession of the home, and they try to get gas turned on. Well, we go in, we see a brand new everything, and and no permit, no sign. So they've bought into this problem because we haven't been able to verify if if any of the systems have been done or installed properly.
Yep.
And so, that creates another unique set of problems. For the contractors, because there's so much work and because there's that opportunity to hire subcontractors, the master plumbers or plumbing companies will hire them, and they do the work. Some are licensed, some are not. Some strictly because they've done it for so long, they go through the processes, and then they get turned down. And we used to call that the red tag education, because we used to issue red tags for violations or I guess deficiencies in the inspection. So now we've gone to what we call a notice of deficiency. So the inspector will go out, he'll make notations of the deficiencies and post that before he leaves.
Yep.
But that in itself, like I said, creates problems, because there again, you don't have licensed personnel out there working all the time, or you don't have a licensed guy out there supervising.
Yep.
And just because there's so much work out there that everybody's trying to get a piece of the pie. So those are just some of the issues that residentially we run into. But if the homeowners could understand that we're not out there to create issues for them, we're out there to ensure that they get a job that's well done, meets the standards. And although a lot of our plumbing stuff you're not going to see, it's buried, it's in the walls.
Yep.
It's not the pretty shiny stuff. So, but that's what makes it work. And if that stuff is not put in correctly, it's not going to work right.
Right. And it's not easy to change sometimes after you do all the pretty stuff.
Yeah, because then you've already put your sheetrock up, your tile, your pretty backsplash, and then you got to bust it all out of there to get it fixed correctly. So,
yeah, and you mentioned the water heater change outs. I mean, I know that was probably something that a lot of people had to do after the freeze, especially with the tankless style. And so, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's the relief valves. That's a big part of it, but you also have all you have the gas piping, vent gas, and the condensate off of those. And I mean, that's a lot going on for what sounds simple with a water heater.
Yeah, it does.
Right, but there's a lot of potential in the gas-fired systems that, if you don't have somebody that knows what they're doing on that, can get you into some trouble.
Yeah, especially with the venting. The carbon monoxide.
Yep.
If they don't vent it properly, if they've intermixed the vent pipe with another material that doesn't quite lock together the way it's supposed to, not to mention a fire hazard.
Yep.
So, yeah, you have those potential issues. The freeze created an interesting situation for everybody. Our guys are out looking for work because they don't have enough inspections. So when they're not fully engaged with a full day's work of inspections, then they're charged with patrolling their areas, looking for potential work that is required to have a permit. But we really didn't. We did and we didn't for the most part. People were real good, I guess, about concealing it somewhat where we couldn't see it. But they did a lot of work. Not a lot of it got reported.
I can't imagine. I mean, things were it was such a mess.
Oh,
getting everything back together after that.
And then I personally understand. I mean, they're in a mode where I need water and I got to get it fixed now, and I can't get a plumber. We had plumbers coming from out of state.
Yep.
The governor had allowed special circumstances for licensed plumbers from other states to come in and help out with a provisional license, and so that was a big help to the citizens of our state and our city. But yeah, shortage of materials, shortage of plumbers, shortage of everything, and it was quite an ordeal for some people that had to really, and still are going through.
Yes.
Because oddly enough, we still have people from Harvey that are still making repairs.
I was just about to say, I mean, I hope that it's not followed up with some sort of a flooding event this fall. I mean, we're already over a month, almost 2 months into hurricane season. Luckily, I mean, we've had a lot of rain, but not any flooding, and hopefully that trend continues through the end of the year.
Yeah.
It'd be a double whammy. Although it was in a lot of ways, totally different equipment that got damaged during the freeze, but I don't think anybody wants to go through anything like that anytime soon. So, you know, in general, what do you feel like are some of the kind of the things that kind of come up in the inspections the most, or just overall, maybe some general advice for people on what to keep an eye out for, or you know, best way to get in touch with you guys or to make this whole process go better?
Well, you know, we're open to any phone calls, any emails that regarding questions in the processes of buying a permit, what's required to have a permit. You know, we welcome the citizens to call and say, hey, I'm going to hire this contractor. Can you verify if he's licensed or registered with the state or with us? And so we'll gladly take those calls and give you all the information that we can. We can't speak to the quality of work. We can merely tell you that, yes, they are registered with us. They can buy permits. The biggest thing is just shop. If you're going to hire somebody, shop it. With all the information that's out on the internet, whether it's good or bad, you know, you take it, you digest it, and you do what you feel like you can do with that information. But the biggest thing is to make sure that they are licensed contractors and that they are registered with the city to buy permits. Out in the county, you can, and even in the city, but more so in the county, you can go onto the Texas State Board of Plumbing Examiners website and do a license search and look for that license information to see if they have a certificate of insurance as required by state law.
Sure.
And to see that their license is current. There again, you can't get any information as to the quality of their work. That's why I say shop it.
Yep.
Do your due diligence. Residential homeowners, for certain, don't necessarily pay everything up front before the work's done.
Yep.
You know, especially in the city, make sure that you get a permit. They're buying the permit on your behalf. So you have the right to ask for that permit, to see that permit before they even start work, which is a requirement of the city anyway. You have to have a permit prior to commencing any work.
Okay.
So just some of those things like that, just doing their due diligence. And, I mean, sometimes you just can't help it. It's an emergency. You get the first person you can get, and we understand that. Understand that we're open to any kind of communication, with, like I said, with whatever the needs are as far as our processes, our inspection types, or what we require, what's required for the inspection. You know, we do get a lot of calls like that, but you know, we do for every one that we get, we probably get another 3 to 4 that don't call in, and I'm a big fan of trust but verify.
Sure.
So yeah, check into that. Call us up. Let us know what you're doing, what your scope of work is, and we can direct you to the right people as far as requirements for plans. Whether it's plans, whether it's a new meter upgrade in gas or water, we can definitely give you all the guidance you need in that regard.
It's good to know, and I like the trust but verify as well, definitely. So you talked a little bit earlier about kind of the mentoring with some of the younger plumbers and you know, the wanting to get more people into the trade, things like that. What advice would you have for people that are, you know, maybe in this maybe looking for something new, or you know, looking at getting into the plumbing industry? What kind of advice would you have for them for their career?
Well, if they're not wanting to go to, or I guess enroll into or be accepted into the plumbing local to go through that program, they can always start working as an apprentice. And so anybody that's going to start or is working as an apprentice, I would urge them to keep that card. They have to register with the state as an apprentice. They get that registration. That helps the state, and it helps the registrant to keep track of the hours that they work. Because I mentioned that earlier.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you can have a certain amount of hours, and you can go test for a tradesman license, which allows you to work residentially unsupervised. Or you can go the full 8,000 hours, which I believe is still the requirement, and go and test for your journeyman.
Right.
And then after that, keep progressing, get the master's. If that's something you want to do. I mean, a lot of people, you don't necessarily have to have the master license to do what we do, but if that's the avenue, if you have aspirations of having your own business at one time, then yeah, definitely go and learn all you can learn. Don't just limit yourself to one aspect of plumbing. Like I said, there's so many different facets. There's so many other endorsements you can get on your license, which is MedGas.
Right.
So you can make your inspections in a medical environment. You get your WSPS, so that's your water supply protection specialist. You get there is a multi-purpose residential fire sprinkler system that the plumbers with that endorsement can install in a home, and basically it's a plumbing related fire sprinkler system. It's not a standalone. So there's just so much that they can learn, get involved with, and the more that you learn, the more of the endorsements that you get, the more marketable you make yourself.
Absolutely.
And the more benefit it is to you and your family.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but yeah, you can learn it. You can learn it through the school, or you can learn it on your own. That's the great thing about this trade. But whatever you do, learn it well, take pride in it. A lot of the younger generation wants to do everything computers, but plumbers were still needed. We're still
absolutely.
And there's still a market for us out there, and be the best you can be at that.
Yep. No, absolutely. I mean, there's definitely going to be a large need for the trades. Especially plumbing, water usage is not going anywhere, right? I mean, that's always going to be there, that need. So I definitely agree. It's a great industry to be in, and definitely a very respectable trade. So
yeah, and the great thing about it as well is that it's always changing. People think it's just cutting and gluing pipe, and it's not. There's so much more to it. There's the rain harvest systems. We're drawing more surface water now than we ever have. So there's energy conservation efforts going on to harvest the rainwater and use that. There's the gray water systems to recycle water for another use, to make the most of our resources.
Yep.
And then just from the technological part of it, the computer systems or the softwares that's out there to size water piping, to size drainage, I mean, it's not just right here. I mean, there's so much to it. You know about that.
Absolutely. And this, you talk about the service side of things. I mean, and that's problem solving, right? You're getting in, the building owner or the property manager is saying, well, this is kind of what's happening. And then you got to diagnose and figure out what the issue is and be able to come up with a solution. And so that's, definitely challenging and fun part of the whole process, and very rewarding, right? Because especially when you're talking about hospitals and things like that, where you're helping keep that building up and going, and definitely the water systems are a big part of it. So.
Yeah, and it's funny that you bring that up about the problem solving, because I think that's what draws me more to the industry and to what I'm doing and what I like the most about it. The service part of it, like you say, you're going out there, you're supposed to know how the system works. Now, no one plumber will put it all in the same way. So, but the principles, the concepts of the theory behind plumbing is all the same.
Right.
Whether it's in a residence or whether it's a commercial establishment, it's all plumbing.
Yep.
And just on a larger scale in the commercial part of it. But to be able to go out and listen to somebody say, hey, I've got this problem, and you go out and you diagnose it, you find the issue, you correct it, and they're like, wow, I would have never thought that.
Right.
And it's, that part of it, the problem solving, is just like I said, that's what's really drawn me to it.
Yep. Definitely a fun part of the job. So, Carlos, really enjoyed having our conversation today. Any last bits of wisdom here that you'd like to share with everybody before we kind of wrap things up?
No, just, we're here to be advocates for the plumbing trade. What we offer here with the city is information, assistance. Just got to communicate to us what you need.
Yep.
And we're more than willing to step out and do whatever we got to do to help you, again, problem solve the issue, whether it's a permitting issue, a planning issue, or the plumbing part of it. We're here to help, and that's really the biggest thing. We're not here to ding anybody for anything in particular, although our position is one out of enforcement,
Right.
which I really don't care for the word too much because it has negative connotations, but it is what it is. It is enforcement.
It's accountability,
and
right?
Yes, and that's at the end of the day, that's all we're doing is trying to help people stay accountable to ensure that they have a safe, good system to do what we need to do to keep them healthy. Because you look at throughout history and whole civilizations were wiped out because of bad plumbing systems.
Yep.
Taking those precautions to.
Yeah, there's certain lines you don't want to cross.
Yeah, and granted, like I said, because of the trade, the nature of the business and what it deals with, so many people kind of look at it a little differently, and not realize that this is a very, very worthwhile trade, and it's an important. It's just a very important trade and expertise.
Yep.
To keep people healthy at the end of the day. That's what
Absolutely.
that's about.
And I think it was highlighted very well after the freeze.
Mm-hmm.
The water goes out, can't get it back on. Everybody realized how important that is.
Yep.
Right.
Yes.
Some I think we all tend to take for granted being able to turn on the faucet and have water, and when that goes away, you realize, man, I really need that, and got to have a plumber to get it back.
Yeah, and even me as a plumber at my own home, I take it for granted things work, but thankfully I know how to work on them. So.
Yeah, you probably got yours back on a little quicker than
well,
most.
Fortunately, I knew how not to get
true.
Yeah, I didn't have that problem.
Yeah,
but then, I wasn't like everybody else. Some people lost power, so that was the double whammy.
It was, for sure.
Yeah.
The house getting cold. Yeah, because I was in that situation. Luckily, we drained the house before it got that cold, and then we were okay when everything came back on. So, but again, really enjoyed the conversation today. Shared a lot of good information, I think, about your department, which I'll do, best ways to work with y'all, and we'll definitely try to make all that information available for people to get to. So, really appreciate it again. Thanks for coming on the show.
Great, appreciate the time and the opportunity.
Absolutely. Also want to thank everybody for watching and listening to this episode of Building Value, and we hope to see you on the next one.